Plastics Pollution Reduction Act webinar, where we will hear from a couple of businesses who are assisting in the transition away from styrofoams and plastics. The Boulder Chamber is partnered with the city, Zeal, Deliver Zero, the Latino Chamber, who is also offering the same webinar in Spanish tomorrow, and PACE is also here with us today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see, get this going. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to climate staff, who is going to start the discussion, and I will advance slides as we are ready.
Thanks so much, Devin. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Ryman, she, her pronouns. I am with the City of Boulder Climate Initiatives Department, and I am part of the Circular Economy team. We wanted to bring together this webinar today with a few of our partners from the county, from chambers of commerce, from other local governments, to talk a little bit about the incoming requirements in 2024 around plastic bags and polystyrene. Did we want to run through introductions at the beginning here, Devin, or should I just go forward?
Let's do some introductions. So I'm Devin Edgley. I'm the Policy Program Specialist at the Boulder Chamber. And Taylor, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I think I had shared that I'm with Climate Initiatives at the City of Boulder. Maybe we can go with Elizabeth next.
Hi, everyone. Elizabeth French, Boulder County PACE, or Partners for Clean Environment.
Mia?
Hi, folks. My name is Mia Belting. I use they, them pronouns. I'm also with Boulder County's PACE, and I do outreach to restaurants on waste education and things like that.
And Wade and Jonathan, if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Wade Jester. I have a restaurant here at Boulder Junction called Zeal Food, and we're very interested in reusables as part of our platform.
Jonathan Singer. I'm the Senior Director of Policy Programs with the Boulder Chamber, and thanks everyone for being here.
And Lauren, I saw you popped on. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Lauren Sweeney, co-founder and CEO of Deliver Zero, a reusable takeout container service available in Boulder.
All right. Thanks, folks. And with that, let's go ahead and advance the next slide.
Oops, sorry.
Thanks so much. So as I mentioned, we're here to talk about the 2024 plastic laws and the business assistance that is available around them. Starting off here with a timeline about the Pollution Prevention Reduction Act that was passed in 2021. This was really a result of many years of advocacy from the City of Boulder and other partners, including those here on the screen today. And it's kind of 4 policies wrapped into one bill from the state. Since 2021, parts of the legislation have incrementally come into effect to give communities and particularly businesses time to transition and make adjustments. And this year, the last pieces of the law will be implemented. The next slides cover more details, but this timeline helps paint a picture of how this new legislation has come into play over the last couple of years and what folks can expect looking ahead. So in January 2023, the statewide bag fee took effect for retail stores. Shortly after that, businesses started reporting and sending part of that bag fee back to local governments, and we'll get into some of these other details. In January 2024, what's coming around the corner is the ban on polystyrene, or styrofoam as it's more commonly referred to. And that comes into play for restaurants. And then later in 2024, local governments will be allowed to create more laws on plastics. Before this law, actually, local governments were restricted from placing more policies on plastics. This is something that's called preemption. But that preemption will be repealed, and now local governments can look forward to having a little bit more authority to regulate plastics how they would like. Advance, please. Okay, so now this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and we've gotten a lot of questions about the exemptions, which there are some exemptions in different areas. This slide on the left-hand side captures what applies to the retail space, and on the right side sort of goes over what applies to restaurants, ready-to-eat food space. And first, I'm going to talk about the general state requirements, and then on the next slide, we'll walk through some additional local policies that take state requirements a bit of a step further. But in general, on the retail side of things, places like grocery stores, clothing stores, liquor stores, most will need to implement a bag fee and eliminate plastic bags. In most of Colorado, there are exemptions for small stores, and those small stores being defined as businesses that are not a franchise or a corporation, places that have 3 or fewer locations, and those locations only being in Colorado. Restaurants and ready-to-eat food stores are not included in this bag piece, and farmers markets, bulk stores, those are also exempted. People on state and federal food assistance are exempted from paying the bag fee. And for those that have old inventory, you may use those plastic bags until they're gone. But starting in 2024, your purchasing might not include plastic carry-out bags. So that'll need to change. But yes, to answer a few of the questions that we have received, you may use what you already have had. And if you could go back to the previous slide, actually. Yes, so on the right-hand side is the ready-to-eat food restaurant, sort of like you're coming in and you're sitting down and sometimes you're getting takeout. And this takeout piece is where this is really relevant, is because there's going to be a ban on polystyrene or styrofoam. And this applies to all stores. Really, the only exemption is that your old inventory may be used, but once that's used up, there are no exemptions. And we'll have a few resources later in the presentation about what do you do and how do you move forward and make different business decisions. And we can advance to the next slide. So that was the state piece of the conversation. And this one highlights the in some places in Colorado, we continue to see a general shift in the policy landscape around waste and materials. And as this slide shows, some of our local cities are already making policy moves to better tackle waste challenges. As these state requirements come into play, statewide solutions are having their impact furthered by local ordinances such as Boulder's and Louisville's expansion of plastic bag requirements, which does not allow for bag fee exemptions in small stores in Boulder. And then there's higher bag fees in Louisville. So in Boulder, bag fees will apply to everyone. There is no small store exemption. And in Boulder, the bag ban is still in place, of course, but that small stores exemption does exist. So to pay for bags, everyone is included, but the bag ban retains that small store exemption. So those that fall under a small store don't need to get rid of all of their plastic bags, but everyone in the city of Boulder will need to charge those fees. And there's other ordinances in other cities, like the Universal Zero Waste Ordinance in Boulder and the Universal Recycling Ordinance in Longmont, that don't particularly talk to the plastic bag styrofoam conversation, but they are seeking to create greater access to recycling and compost services for businesses and residents in general. And this is just to highlight sort of the changing nature of that policy landscape around waste and materials that I mentioned. And looking ahead, what we saw in that timeline earlier is that the PPRA law will allow for local governments to create stricter policies. And some elected officials have expressed interest in exploring what can be done to limit single-use plastics because of the harm on the environment and complications to our waste systems. And I'll talk a little bit more about that bigger picture, but definitely didn't want to bury the lead and just get right out there. Like, this is what's coming down the pike in 2024. So we can move on to the next slide, and I believe I will be handing it off to my colleague, Elizabeth French with the county to talk about that business assistance side of things.
Thank you, Taylor. and appreciate everyone being here. So PACE is a Boulder County program. We help all businesses in Boulder County become more sustainable. So one of the things naturally that we're doing is helping businesses navigate the polystyrene or styrofoam ban. One thing that we offer to all businesses is just free one-on-one advising sessions. So we can go into your business and talk through some barriers, talk about some opportunities and solutions, maybe some solutions that other neighboring businesses are working on. We also partnered with the City of Boulder as well as EcoCycle to create the Guide to Sustainable Serviceware. And Devin, if you'll go to the next slide, I'll just briefly touch on that. So this guide that you can see now, there's actually a lot more to it. This is just sort of one of the highlights that I thought was most interesting for this group. The guide is simply to help businesses navigate, like, how do they purchase more sustainable takeout containers or cups? We realize that all businesses are super busy, and this is sort of added to the list of things that they have to do. So we try to make it really easy. This page talks about what containers might be more environmentally friendly for dry or solid foods. So as you can see on the left is more of a better choice. As you go all the way to the right, you'll see polystyrene or styrofoam as well as black plastics as things to kind of avoid. In the guide, there's all sorts of good information to help you navigate purchasing, including investment, like, you know, how much things cost, what reusable options are available. So we think this guide is really helpful, and it is also available in Spanish. And we're happy to be more hands-on and help out businesses in whatever way they need. And then Devin, if you'll go backwards to where we started, to the PACE slide. The other way, sorry. Another thing that PACE offers through City of Boulder is free 5-gallon buckets for businesses in Boulder. So say you're, you know, navigating like the compost contamination issues and you want to compost in your kitchen, and just a 5-gallon bucket would be super helpful. We have those for free with lids. So if anyone wants one, let us know. If you're in Boulder County, but not in Boulder, but interested in a bucket, let us know, and we will certainly see how we can help your business. Another thing that we're helping businesses with is a new free pilot opportunity with chart reuse. So essentially, chart reuse helps businesses go from single use to reusables and sort of really mapping out what that could look like for your business. Really exciting in that they're offering this for free. So certainly let us know if you're interested there. And then another thing we started in this year in 2023 is a reusable solutions grant. So this one I love because it's not a rebate in us telling you what we think you need. It's you tell us what you might need, and we'll look at it, and you may be eligible for a grant. In City of Boulder, they pay up to 70% of the cost, up to $2,000. Lafayette has a similar program where it's 50% up to $1,000. And for any businesses in unincorporated Boulder County, which you will know if you are, then it's the same as Boulder, up to $2,000 for 70% of the cost. So we've seen a lot of businesses do various things. You can do reusables, you can buy a dishwasher. It's like whatever you need, whatever you think you might need to create a reusable program. So that was sort of my list. I want to pop over to Mia so they can say hello and then also introduce our next guest.
Hi, folks. So as I said in my introduction, I'm going around to all of the restaurants in Boulder, and I work really closely with restaurants to try and navigate changing from styrofoam containers to new containers. And I was visiting Zeal a couple months ago and met with Wade Jester, and just loved everything about what Zeal is doing. They have lots of reusables within like the in-house durables. Everything is reusable. And actually, Devin, you can go to that slide if you'd like. But they have also used Deliver Zero containers, which you can see in the picture, basically since they were available for Zeal to use. And then they've also taken advantage of our reusable grant through PACE. So Wade is wonderful. Everything they do at Zeal is awesome. And we just wanted to have Wade come in and talk to you all about what it's been like using reusables in a restaurant and how it actually works day to day. So without further ado, here's Wade to come and talk to you all.
All right. Thank you, Mia. All those supportive remarks. Appreciate that. Yeah, our restaurant is forward-leaning in a lot of aspects related to food and sustainability, and food that, one of our taglines is food that loves you back. So we try and really get into the food that serves the community well, and we want food to be enjoyable. We want it to be nutritive. We want to use good ingredients. We want to use local ingredients as much as possible. We want to help try and contribute a positive impact toward climate and sustainability in all facets. So we try and really utilize the whole plant when we cook something, or the whole animal when we cook something. We try to and all the single-use plastic and paper goods, it's been a challenge to try and conquer that until there was a resource like Deliver Zero out there that allowed us to offer a returnable product. I love using it personally because of its durability, and the compostable plastics when they were, and the unlined paper products inevitably leak, or it can be problematic for in reaction to heat, or they're not very insulating, and they just don't keep food fresh very long. So going to returnables on the one hand really helps, I think, improve the quality of the experience for the customer. In a place like Boulder, you would think that people would be all over using returnables, and that has not been the case so far. But I think it's one of those, we haven't reached a tipping point where people expect it or count on it yet. And and it's not, there are limited reasons why returnables don't work. A lot of times we get a pickup when somebody's headed to the airport, or or going to an out of area meeting, and there's nobody designated to bring everything back, or they don't want to leave it in the car while they leave town, or maybe they're not even driving to the airport and they're taking the bus. So I mean, there are reasons, but I think by and large it's an easy sell if you can get the employees behind it. And I think having some training around that would be excellent to kind of get them excited about it. In our line of work, anything that creates friction in the sale process for an employee is something they tend to avoid trying to do. So I think I give Deliver Zero a lot of credit for being as frictionless as possible, but there's still a little bit of grit to get through when it comes to offering this, because you got to kind of explain the situation. There's a modest fee. People are nervous about being hounded to return them. You can sense like some people are just so easy to offer this to, and they are on board from the beginning, and others you can feel the hesitation because they just, don't want to add more complication to their already busy lives. So, I think there's something to work through there. But I think that, if we can get more restaurants on board with this, it's not it's not a jump in cost for the restaurant, which is important. And I think that's been really, helpful to feel like in some cases we may even save a little money by using Deliver Zero, rather than a disposable. I haven't done a thorough accounting of it, but on, just a little paper napkin assessment, it's, especially if we take them back and wash them ourselves, it's actually about a push or maybe even a little net positive for the restaurant to use a returnable. So, I think that's an important selling point for the restaurant, is to, is that it can be a net positive or net neutral. And, and I think if more, if there's a way to help with the training of restaurants to transition their people so that they start talking about this as a benefit for the community. I always love, like, when I get a chance to sell somebody on this, because I feel like it's so easy. You get this great box, look at it. I usually grab one from our shelf and I'm like, see how durable it is. Your food's going to come in this. It's going to stay fresher. Keep it for a couple of days or a week or two, and use it for leftovers. Bring it back whenever you can. It's fine. You have 3 weeks. Like, no rush. Come back and hopefully you're coming back and buying another lunch from us at that point either, and you can bring it back then. So and I think that people want to do the right thing if it's not if they feel like it's easy, it's fairly straightforward, and they don't and it's not cost prohibitive. So so the model where it's only 99 cents no matter how many boxes you get, it's if we see 2 or 3 or 4 different items coming in an order, it's even easier to sell. Somebody is getting like a single appetizer that costs $7, that's more than a 10% increase on their price. But if it's if they're paying $40 or $50 on a to-go order, 99 cents seems like a drop in the bucket. So I think they're definitely, they're more often than not, we have a way to promote it to the customer. It's just about getting our spiel down. I think getting some help from, I'm on board, but sometimes I'm so busy I don't have, enough time to kind of like inspire everybody to try and sell this as part of it, when I'm also trying to inspire them to sell other things too. But, any support we could get to help train our employees on that, I think would help not only my restaurant, but help kind of penetrate the market a little bit further with this product. Let's see. Is there anything else I can shed light on? Any questions from the audience?
I think there was one question, but I'm hoping that we can hear from everybody and then circle back to the questions at the end, if that's okay. Is that okay with everyone? All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much. So I think after that, I was going to ask a couple of questions to Lauren Sweeney from Deliver Zero. So I was going to move to that point in the agenda, if that's okay. So, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you participating. And I think I'm going to start with, let's see. Let me pull up my question. Sorry about that. So, what are some of the steps that your business takes to assist businesses in transitioning to sustainable materials?
So the first part really is getting the businesses on board, which is the biggest challenge. And as Wade alluded to, really the opportunity as well. Once our containers are in, say, most or all Boulder restaurants, it'll become much easier for the customer. It'll take a lot less explaining for the restaurant partners. But it's really been on us to get these restaurants on board. And it's still a novelty, and it's still something that requires a lot of explaining before the restaurant even says yes to the program. So the first step is getting the restaurant on board and explaining any incentives that might exist for them to come on board faster. Like the city of Boulder offers financing for like the first 1,500 uses are free to restaurants that come on board right now. So making sure that we're like leading with that, but then also helping them understand that once those $1,500 worth of uses are up, this is not going to be a big cost burden to them, and actually in some cases could help them save money. So we go into restaurants and we say, we actually lead with the financial value proposition, because if we walk into a restaurant and say, this is a reusable container, it's more sustainable, it sounds both expensive and difficult. It sounds like, get out of here, you're probably really nice, but this isn't going to work. So we lead with the fact that this should either be breaking even with single use or actually saving restaurants money, that there are some grant incentives to try it out, and that we have really put the work in to make this as easy for restaurants as possible. Customers ask for our containers at the counter, or they opt in when they order through delivery apps. And we integrate directly with POS systems. We integrate directly with delivery apps. We provide a module to check containers out to customers with just a couple taps if they're using a POS that we don't integrate with. So it shouldn't take a lot of extra steps. It takes the customer opting in and saying, yes, I want my order in reusables. And then the restaurant, say, noting that within the POS system, or simply typing in the customer's phone number and the number of containers they got. So that's the first step, is getting the restaurant on board, helping them understand the value of the program. When we onboard a restaurant, we do go through sort of a training with them. And Wade, you've been on for so long that you might not be aware of the existing processes. So we do go in and train the restaurant and try to help empower restaurant operators to train their teams. So there are assets that our team will drop off along with the containers. We help the restaurant add our containers to their menu if they need help. And depending on their POS system and a couple of intricacies I could talk in more detail with those who are interested. We just help them get set up. So stock them up with containers at no cost, add the menu item to their POS system, make sure that we map the number of containers each item goes in. So this is what allows us to attribute packaging to a customer's account without putting extra burden on restaurant workers. Most reuse systems globally either require restaurant workers to scan a QR code on every single container, or take a code that the customer has copy and pasted from one app into another, and it's a whole mess. So this one step where we're like, yes, like one grain bowl goes in one container, the pad thai entree comes in 2 containers because you got a side with it. We just go through that really quickly, and we actually pre-map their menu. So the restaurant owner or chef just needs to look at it and make sure it's correct. We don't give them that whole extra homework assignment. And then we offer kind of a library of assets. So rather than printing off every asset for every restaurant, we try to make restaurants aware through email blasts and through any other touch points we have with the restaurants of what assets are available to them. Like some restaurants are willing to put a postcard in the bag with every single use order, making them aware of the option to order in reusables next time. So we make those available where they're wanted, or countertop signage. We have a whole range of assets that we will make available, but we don't print and stock restaurants up with if they don't actively want them, because that would just be wasteful. We stock you up with a bunch of postcards and you never use them, then we're kind of not doing exactly what our company's whole mission is about. And then on an ongoing basis, we have a text and email line where restaurants can chat in, text us, call us at any time of day. And yeah, anything you might need. So some restaurants might want to see what their usage has been. Like there are a lot of different types of questions that come through. So we're pretty fast to respond. We like to be as helpful as we can be. And there are two other resources that we give restaurants to be supportive on an ongoing basis. One is access to a merchant dashboard where you can actually log in and see all of your usage history and your inventory. The other thing is we proactively track restaurants' inventories and try to restock restaurants without restaurants needing to let us know that they need to be restocked. It's not perfect yet. Sometimes we think a restaurant is running low, call them, say, we'll drop off containers, we think you're running low. And they say, no, we are actually not. We're getting a lot of customer returns. So there's still a bit to be worked out, but we've heard from many restaurants who are kind of surprised about how proactively we're able to restock them because of how closely we're monitoring their inventory based on the usage of our system.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think you went really into depth on there. So I'm just going to ask one last question, and it relates to like the timeline. Do you find it easy for businesses to make the transition, and what does that timeline look like?
So I find it easy. Like I designed this system to be as easy as possible. I think that there are restaurants who might imagine that this is more operationally difficult than it is. I'd encourage those restaurants to just give it a try because it's very no financial risk. We are stocking you up for free, and your first uses are being covered in many cases right now. So I think it's really easy. Like for restaurant teams, they just need to put orders in reusable packaging. When the customer opts in, it's as easy as like adding tomato or removing cheese. I think the biggest hurdle to get over is kind of opposition to doing new things. That's a much bigger hurdle than our process is.
And Lauren, I had a quick question, if you don't mind me jumping in. How many of your businesses that you work with offer both the reusable option and a different disposable option? Is it generally like both are available, or are there any businesses that are just using your product solely?
So right now, I think it's really important, unfortunately, that restaurants do have a reusable and a single-use option. We really need to make sure that customers who receive reusable packaging are generally into it. I think that could change over time, and in closed loop environments like concerts, you can kind of, for lack of a better word, force reusables as the only option faster. But in a restaurant setting, or like in Whole Foods, where we are in a few stores right now, it needs to be an opt-in system. Otherwise, we run into the same challenges that come with, say, like a poorly worded bag ban, where you're just putting out a more durable container that does take more resources to produce. Like it is a thicker plastic than like a single-use plastic, and needs to be reused at least 2 or 3 times before you start to see the break even. And if they're just being used once, then they're just single use. So even if there are some designs that we can introduce more air pockets, whatever, get the break even closer to the first use. But even in that case, we're not trying to put out containers that are just used one time. And if you have customers who are opting in to receive reusable packaging, they won't be, which is why we see a good return rate. in the long term, I think it's possible for reuse to become so normal that maybe you could just offer a reusable option. We're a ways away from there.
Yeah, well, and just as you're talking, I mean, what a product like yours that's very new, this reusable takeout container is, it's systems change, it's culture change. There's a lot of change there. And so like a sort of an easier transition where both's offered. And certainly there are customers that are going to be very eager to take advantage of a product like this. And for others, it just doesn't work with their next 3 weeks of their life, perhaps. And businesses, you know, I just wanted to highlight this because any businesses needing to make a transition, understanding that the ability to diversify the business decisions that come with that transition and build out more customer options, I think is really cool.
Yeah, and the phrase you use, systems change, is exactly right. And that's what we keep finding over and over, and why calls like this are so helpful, where we have all different types of stakeholders coming together to create solutions that work for everyone. Because it's not going to be one type of solution or one company that kind of gets us where we need to be from a climate and environmental perspective. It's like all of us putting our heads together. So this is why I'm grateful you all had me on tonight. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And so at this point, I think we were going to go back to the slides and hand it back to climate staff. So let me get those pulled up really quick.
Taylor, you're muted right now.
Brick. Sorry about that. Thanks for telling me. As I mentioned earlier in the call, certainly this was marketed as 2024 plastic laws, and business assistance didn't want to bury the lead on that. And so came out strong with the what is going on, had Zeal here and Deliver Zero and Pace to explain a little bit of the how does that work. And now wanted to get into the why, because I think the why is dreadfully important when we're talking about what's happening right now, what's been happening, and what may be coming in the future. Because we don't, as much as I very much think there are a lot of very good, well-meaning people out in the world that do things because it's the right thing to do. There's also like a good reason that we do these things that go a little bit beyond wanting to save the planet, and certainly is a call that I respond well to. But some folks have also maybe heard about this year's changes to composting and that compostable takeout containers and other serviceware that was compostable, they're no longer being accepted in the compost. This has been a real challenge for businesses again. And I wanted to talk about the situation briefly to help folks understand a little bit about like what's happening in the compost recycling world, why are policies like this coming into play at the state and other local levels. And the good news is that people are eager to participate in composting and recycling, as evidenced through all of the sort of bad situations that we're seeing. Is that eager participation is of course not perfect, but in an effort to try to move our systems in a place where that composting and recycling works more how it's intended to, I wanted to explain a little bit about what's going on. So the bad news is many folks in the packaging industry are making products that are incompatible with recycling and composting processes. You know, recycling and specifically was a system that was created 50 or so years ago when our products sort of looked a little bit more simple. Today, we're seeing pill bottles come made in like 3 or 4 different kinds of plastics. Like things are getting very lightweighted, which is great for transportation and things like that, but really challenging on the waste side of things. People can't interpret the outdated recycling symbols, and there's this concept of green marketing. You're going to see that on the slide in the left-hand picture. It makes people think that products are recyclable or compostable specifically, but they're not. Something that's bio-based, something that's biodegradable, those are not compostable, and it's very well-meaning people who want to do the right thing that put them in the compost bin, but it creates a lot of problems. And then current sorting activities, we don't quite yet have the technology built out in our infrastructure with the sorting machines, and they get really challenged with plastic bags and cardboard lined with plastics, bottles that are made from 3 kinds of plastic. These technologies are coming into existence. We're continuing to innovate in this space, but it's pretty new to get a highly sophisticated sorting machine for composting and recycling that can pick out all of these challenging products. And I'm trying to paint this picture because I'm trying to relate to businesses and restaurants and things. And a restaurant wouldn't serve dinner on a dirty dinner plate, and a grocery store wouldn't sell moldy bread. A retail store wouldn't sell a damaged picture frame, and recyclers can't sell a bale of plastic that's highly contaminated with things like styrofoam and plastic bags and all of these things that aren't easily processed when you go into actually turning that plastic bale into new plastic. All of these contaminants really make them unsellable and useless. And the recycling and composting industry it's a market like anything else. If there's a lot of contaminants in the compost stream, that's not going to make good compost. That's not going to make good soil, and people aren't going to buy that. And so recycling and composting, these issues in these areas are being addressed by policymakers. They're exploring more rules and regulations to support industries and business options and consumer behaviors so that the best choice can be the easiest choice, and make sure that decisions at the point of sale can line up with decisions at the waste bin. And I understand that perhaps folks are thinking, well, why always come at us businesses? Why always come at us businesses? Businesses are certainly one leverage point in this broader system that we're talking about. And there are attempts to look at earlier in the pipeline solutions, perhaps industries and the producers of these goods, but businesses are also still a leverage point in trying to address our waste stream in a way that creates healthy materials that can be used and then sold to end markets. So we are exploring, again, those earlier in the pipeline changes, and examples include recent legislation called the Extended Producer Responsibility Act, and that will be charging producers, so largely manufacturers of things, for how they package their goods. It hasn't come into play yet. There's some steps that need to be accomplished for that, but manufacturers essentially will be charged for the kinds of packaging they used, and then those fees will go back to local governments to fund recycling programs. Another piece of legislation has been trying to look at compost labeling laws, so that in that slide with the sort of bioproduct, biodegradable, and made from plants, those sorts of things can be addressed and be required to be a little bit more clear on whether or not it is actually recyclable, because we understand that businesses often just sort of receive, they have available what is on the market, and that those are their purchasing decisions. I myself, as someone in climate initiatives, had to spend like 2 hours researching an actual certified compostable dog poop bag. That is ridiculous. As someone who is a professional in this space, that I spent 2 hours needing to figure this out. And I think that it is, of course, incumbent upon all of us to make sure that these decisions are easier for everybody else. And then just wanted to touch on these out-of-date symbols again. Like I had said earlier, these symbols were created long before. Did you find one that is actually compostable? Yes, I did. I did eventually find one. It took a lot of research. But these symbols, again, our recycling systems were created like 50 years ago. These symbols are largely meaningless these days, and probably deserve a look as well. And that's being explored at the federal level. You can go on to the next slide. Just wanted to say that as we continue to iterate on these conversations, like how do we make our situation that we're facing right now better? How do we plan things better for the future? We are working with folks like EcoCycle. You saw that serviceware guide earlier on recommendations for how to make your next best business decisions in these spaces. This slide comes from Longmont, and they're actually looking at how prices compare between different takeout container options so that we can better support businesses on what are the ramifications of your decision. You know, what are going to be your year-end costs if you switch away from styrofoam to aluminum, for example, or to plastic. And with that, I do believe that sort of covers everything I wanted to talk about. I'll look at Devin and the rest of the panel to see if anybody wants to chime in. I am a new kid on the block to this space. I've only been in climate initiatives for 3 months, so I've spent a lot of time trying to come up to speed on things. And if I maybe spoke out of turn or didn't explain anything well enough, I would welcome my friends on the panel to jump in.
I think that you did an amazing job, and I think we held a little bit of space and time here for Jonathan Singer, the Senior Director of Policy Programs, to chime in before we go to questions.
You know what? And thank you, Devin, and thank you everybody for being here. I'm just going to say this very quickly. This is, an opportunity. This is the first opportunity for a lot of businesses to be hearing something, or maybe the second at most. This is not the end of the conversation. We are in the middle of the conversation now, and so the Boulder Chamber is a resource to keep up to date with what's happening, because we want to work on doing these things together, which is why we have government, nonprofit, and the Boulder Chamber working together to bring you this information in the most up-to-date way possible. Other than that, I really want to get to the questions now. I'm happy to get into the meat of things. So if we can kick it back to the questions, and otherwise I can pop in with some of my own questions if we don't have any.
I think there was one question from a Mr. Colin Larson, who has joined us from the Colorado Restaurant Association. So I asked him if he wanted to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll allow him to talk.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. And I apologize for whatever reason the camera on my Zoom thing broke this morning. So I'm not intentionally staying off camera, but you'll have to just deal with my voice. But yeah, first of all, thank you for putting this together. It's quite informative, and then obviously a big area of interest for a lot of our members up in Boulder. And I apologize. My question actually stemmed from the beginning of the presentation, where you were talking about City of Boulder's decision to remove the small store exemption for plastic bags. And I just wanted to get point of clarification on that, because restaurants were exempted from the statewide legislation, but I think their exemption for the plastic bag portion, not for the polystyrene or the expanded polystyrene portion. And I just wanted to clarify that when you said the small store exemption, that covers the restaurants as well. So restaurants are not exempt from the plastic bags portion of that legislation.
So you're correct that restaurants, the plastic bag pieces do not apply to restaurants, ready to eat food, things like that. Plastic bags do apply in grocery sense of the food picture, but that it's kind of tricky, because there's the plastic bag and then there's the polystyrene restaurant, and restaurants do not need to worry about plastic bag.
Okay, and so that was my point of clarification. So even with the City of Boulder, and it's, I just want to make sure I'm getting accurate information to our membership in Boulder, but that they're still exempt from the plastic bag, the single-use plastic bag portion in City of Boulder. Obviously, everybody is not allowed to use polystyrene, which is something our membership is prepared for. I just wanted to get clarification on that point.
You're correct. Yes.
Great. Well, thank you for answering that. And then I also did just want to thank the city of Boulder for taking into consideration the costs and being proactive on trying to implement an employer incentive and support for implementing some of these new things. So often, policy is made with absolutely no consideration for the costs and the transition, and just kind of expected for industry to suck it up. And it's just nice to have folks on the government side thinking, hey, gosh, we're asking for costs to go up and for businesses to take time out of their day to implement a new system and increase their costs. How can we be helpful in this process? So I just want to applaud and say how much we appreciate that mindset. So
Thank you so much, Colin. And I appreciate what you said about the implementation. It is something that thought is put into when these kinds of policies are made. And I was actually wondering if, Jonathan, maybe you could speak to that a little bit, because we know that there's a lot of decisions and negotiations, outside of what am I buying to wrap my customers' food in. There's so many business decisions that you guys are navigating, and this is just another wrench in the system. So Jonathan, what do people think up in the big house about making these policies?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as somebody who worked on the polystyrene issue when I was in the Colorado General Assembly, we actually killed that bill originally because it was in the middle of COVID. We didn't need to have, we were discussing how to just maintain a viable economy at that time, not build something better. And then even after it passed, the idea was to delay implementation so these conversations could actually take place and ensure that we find the best pathway forward. And the idea here is really to chart a pathway when new ideas come up, to ensure that we're doing something in concert with the business community and government, as opposed to government doing something to businesses. The idea is to do something with businesses. So and we've seen here today with both Lauren talking about how we've been able to, we're seeing new business models actually come up. And with Wade, who I'm disappointed didn't have food delivered to all of the speakers here in those reusable containers, so we could do a show and tell right now. I'm looking forward to the pumpkin spice cheesecake if it's not off the menu yet. So
still there.
Good. All right, that was my second question today. So, but in all seriousness, the process is almost as important as the policy, and that's why meetings like this are so important. If I'm going to flip it back, if people have questions, if our partners in the business community do have questions, Taylor, what's the best way to reach out to you? Same thing for Wade and Lauren as well. Who are the people that they should be reaching out to? In the meantime, on the flip side for the viewers here, you can certainly reach me. I'll put this in the chat as well. Jonathan.singer@boulderchamber.com. More than happy to discuss this with any of you and get you in touch with the right resources to talk about transitioning and incentives.
Yeah, I actually think we had a slide with all the contact information, Devin, and I understand that the Boulder Chamber will be posting the recording of this later. So that's what I'll say for contact and follow up.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we'll wait for the slide on that one.
Yes,
Wade,
there it is.
Okay, Wade, in the meantime, I had one other question for you. Because there are people who are still struggling to get back on their feet after COVID. There's still huge transitions in the economy with decreases in commercial space, which means the lunch rush isn't happening as much as it used to be in certain locations. In terms of your bottom line, moving in profitability. Did this move the needle one way or the other when you transitioned, or was this just sort of a blip on the radar?
Just a blip on the radar. I think we takeout business is, is probably 20% to 25% of our overall business. So that's a smaller slice. And then, we use a lot of that takeout business. A lot of it is third-party delivery business. And we've only just recently enabled an option for customers to choose a returnable container and that. And so in fact, I think we just got that on those platforms in the last couple of weeks, and I'm not sure I've seen an order yet come through that requested it. But so it's really just for the people that order, that either phone in or they go onto our website and do an order for pickup, and those are the people that have that are the most likely to use a returnable, or if somebody comes into the restaurant and says they want something to go, but that's far and few between. So it is just incidental at this point.
Blip on the radar. Well, so I know we've only got like 5 minutes left, and what I wanted to say is first of all, apart from thank you to all of our presenters and speakers today, not everyone is going to have the full hour. Thank you, Colin, for joining us for the full hour here. If there aren't other questions, my last question is, given the fact that this was an hour-long presentation, I always like to lead with something. If you had one piece of advice, any of the people who presented today, if anyone had one piece of advice or one thing you wanted businesses, community members to walk away from with this conversation that has or hasn't been discussed, what would it be? And I'm going to leave that open to anybody.
I just want to jump in real quick because my answer to that question is, I would say make the small steps that you can anywhere you can. Wade didn't talk too much about it, but he's also got reusables for all of the in-house durables, and even just making small changes like buying reusable silverware can limit the amount of single-use plastic that you're using. Pace has some money that you can use toward that. But I think any small steps gets you on the right path to making the big steps later on. So I don't know if that's good advice, but that's my advice.
No, that's excellent. Good advice, Mia. Mm-hmm.
I'll share mine. It's a bit self-serving in the first part, but stick with me. Mine is to engage with solutions where they're available. Those of us who are creating solutions are really up against strong odds. Leave it there for now because we're limited for time. And we really need to be able to prove that people want to do the right thing. I hear from people every day who want to do the right thing. My universe is full of people who really want to do the right thing. But I know that our customer base still represents a really small fraction of the people who are out there. So we need like one person after another to engage with our system, but also to engage in the systems change that really comes in the form of policy. So I always, I send out a newsletter to our customers where I'm like, cool, I got you here. You engaged with reusables in some fashion. Now, like, show up for this rally, send this email, do whatever Judith Enck from Beyond Plastics, a big nonprofit out here, tells you to do, because like that's how we normalize these things. First, in like participating in solutions in the early days so we can all stay alive. Like these solutions can keep going, but also to normalize them through policy. And all of us have a voice in all of that.
And jumping on that, I'll chime in with, I think that sometimes the government business relationship, governments being sort of the regulatory piece and businesses often being regulated, creates a bit of a rub. It's not fun sometimes having these requirements come into play and having to make the decisions. But my hope would be don't regard us as adversaries, and regard us as partners. Often we're responding to demands from elected officials, we're responding to demands from the community. We're trying to make our cities places that people can be safe and healthy and thrive. We want to do that together. We want to do that informed. And so to Lauren's point on systems change, policy that drives that, help us do that better so that we can make all the decisions that we're trying to make, the right choices, the best and the easiest choices.
How many people have purchased an electric car with the hope of getting that $7,500 credit, from the government? What if there was some kind of system that you bought 10 meals using reusable packaging, you get the 11th one free from the local government, or, some kind of gift card would be sent out automatically to you. Thank you for, caring. And I feel like that kind of perk could, create that enthusiasm.
Sounds like we need a brainstorming conversation, Wade.
Yep.
It's now 3 o'clock. Thank you all so much for joining us for this webinar. Thank you to our partners. And I hope to talk to you all soon. Have a great day. And here are some contacts on the screen if you would like more information. I will move this over so you can see this part as well. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.